Hello. So if you are wondering if you're a thinker or a feeler, this video will try and help you in figuring that out. It's going to be a little long. I'll try to make it short, but very comprehensive. The goal is to see how thinking versus feeling is defined according to Jung, MBTI and Socionics, and then come to some sort of unified, synthesized definition on which we can base our typing of ourselves or of other people, right? And so that's my aim here. I did it for introversion, extroversion, blah, blah, blah. This is the last sort of dichotomy. So if you want to check the other videos, they exist on my channel. So let's go and do a little intro. So we're going to clarify that thinking and feeling are decision-making functions. Both of them, they're not simply code logic or emotions. They're both psychological functions that aims in forming judgments. Right? We know that when we perceive, we're simply gathering info about the world. And then when it comes to judging based on feeling or thinking, what we're aiming to do is to come to a conclusion, make a decision, and evaluate things, right? So we'll do synthesis, and then we'll see like which one resonates with us. So let's go to Jung's definitions first, because he was the originator, and so he should be the first. The general frame here is that Jung defined thinking and feeling as two rational judging functions, right? They make meaning, they come to conclusions, just as I said. Thinking generally aims for truth, while feeling aims for value. You can see that it isn't the same thing, right? Feelers can sort of be against truth because they don't value the thing, maybe it hurts people or whatever. And then the opposite is true. Thinkers can sort of aim so much for the truth that they forget to ask themselves if what they're doing is actually valuable or liked or has a positive effect on others. All right, so according to Jung, thinking is motivated by seeking either objective or subjective truth, validity, right? It perceives reality through concepts, criterion, causes, and abstract relations. And behaviorally, it strives for clarity, order, logical consistency, and deductive analysis. So it detaches from anything that's ethical, feeling, relational, in order to be as impartial and impersonal as possible to see the truth. Extroverted thinking will be oriented toward external facts, objective systems and procedures and methods. They'll use pre-existing frameworks. So it's extroverted out of the subject. It's more established, like tradition, science, consensus, proof. And it will seek efficient outcomes and practical implementation. An introverted thinker will be oriented toward internal coherence, a structure of logic and validity. They develop original frameworks or abstract internal models. So they're detached from anything that's proven or established or shared, and it really comes from their unconscious, you could say. And they seek logical purity and structural consistency, even if it's impractical, which an extroverted thinker wouldn't like. So that's thinking. When you're a thinker, you do that more than the feeling thing. And you're going to be more confident in that than confident in the feeling thing. So now let's go to feeling according to Jung. Sorry, it itches here. Keep scratching, but now I'm going to stop. All right, so feeling according to Jung is motivated by determining value, right? Is it worth something? How much is it worth? And relational meaning. So it is very social, relational, right? This person and I, how does it affect us? How does it affect them? There's an emotional component, right? It is there. It perceives reality through subjective or intersubjective worth. As I said, you can think of scales a little bit. And behaviorally, it seeks harmony, attunement, and or, because FI doesn't necessarily seek harmony with everyone, mostly with their close relationships, but anyway, and or alignment with personal or social values. So extroverted feeling will be sensitive to the external emotional atmosphere or mood, the norms and the cultural values. It's more like a group thinking. And it will express and regulate and align with the social feeling, with the feeling that's outside of itself, and it creates social cohesion, hospitality, and warmth, which is great. Then introverted feeling will be about deeply personal values that will often be sort of invisible or private, right? Like a dark river, you know it's deep, but you can't really see it. And it will evaluate based on authentic resonance. So how does it feel? How does it resonate with me and my inner ethical framework, you could say? Rather than external expectation, like FE, and it may appear reserved, principled, and quietly intense. And again, if you're a feeler, you won't be that confident or that skilled in the thinking aspects, and you will spend most of your time doing feeling stuff. So you may be more social and relationally oriented. So that was Jung. And now let's go to MBTI. It's a bit simplified, but it can still be pertinent because it's widely used. So let's go into it. But here they talk about preferences in decision making. So it's not like a psychological function that evaluates. This is more like, how do I make my decisions? There's a slight difference here. But anyway, MBTI defines thinking as deciding using impersonal logic, objective analysis, and principles. And the keywords are critical, detached, task-focused, and systems thinking. The common behaviors are weighing the pros and the cons, seeking efficiency, delivering through feedback if needed. So I think this matches well with how Jung described thinking. It seeks to detach from the feeling aspect to arrive to truth, you could say. Then how MBTI describes feeling, well, here the feeler will decide based on personal values, impact on people, and harmony. I think that the problem here is that MBTI describes thinker as cold all the time, which isn't necessarily the truth, and also feelers as always sweet and seeking harmony, which is also not always the truth. Emotions can also be negative, like anger or sadness. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so harmony. And then the keywords for feelers is that they're empathetic, value-driven, and relationship-oriented. So again, this is about relationships and connection. The common behaviors are considering different perspectives. It's not about, is it a true, accurate perspective? It's more like, I'll seek to understand your perspective, your ethical perspective. Giving affirming feedback, so not critical feedback, which is aimed at truth and accuracy, but affirming. It's going to be more warm, more soft, more like sugar. And avoiding conflict. So thinking does not mean being intelligent. As you can see, there's nothing that says intelligence when it comes to thinking, and nothing says emotional about feeling. Although it will be tied to emotions, it is still a thinking process that evaluates. That's why I prefer Socionics, and that's where we're at now. The Socionics perspective, instead of saying thinking and feeling, they use logic and ethics, which is better because both are thinking processes. The person that engages with those functions will think. It will just be based on different criteria, you could say. One is based on logic, the other is based on ethics. And I think it helps understanding this idea that both are rational and intelligent and think things through, Well, they can or can't, but it's a possibility for both to do that. So all right, let's go to logic when it comes to Socionics. I'll go a bit deeper in this one because I think it's interesting. So, logic is a focus on systems, structures, facts, procedures, and objectivity. Again, I think this aligns very well. The orientation is that it seeks what is correct, valid, accurate, effective, and logically consistent. You can see there again the theme of truth. Types, well, these logical types, they prefer to talk about what is right or wrong, accurate, inaccurate, valid, invalid, and often feel more comfortable with systems, rules, and measurable processes than they do with the feeling stuff, the relationships and the emotions. So typical behaviors for logical types, they're interested in how things work. They want to learn, they want to understand. They solve problems using impersonal logic. They seek to detach from any sort of ethical, relational criteria to really be impersonal, and they tend to prefer argumentation over persuasion. So here's every fact I understand, everything I understand, the system, the structure, the logic, I'll share that with you, which is more argument, whereas persuasion would be more like using emotion without any arguments to convince you, which is more of a feeling thing. And logical types are more vulnerable to ethical manipulation. Since it's a weaker spot, they may be manipulated there. Examples would be great, but I don't have any, so feel free to create one if you want. Then in socionics, ethics is a focus on people, relationships, emotions, values, and subjective experiences. Subjective not in the sense of I, but in the sense of I can decide if I like or don't like the fact that the moon is round. Subjective in that sense, like, so I don't like it and I'll pretend that the moon isn't round because ethically I don't like it. I don't know. I'm being mean to ethical people here, but I'm just trying to define subjective. They can still be very intelligent. Orientation. It's oriented toward what is good. That's what it seeks. It seeks what is good, appropriate, and emotionally fitting, either with the environment or emotionally fitting with what's within them. The ethical types, they prefer to talk about good, bad, valuable, unvaluable, like, dislike, and are naturally more attuned to social harmony or disharmony and to emotional climates. Typical behaviors of ethical types, they're interested in how people feel. They're interested in people in general. They solve problems by considering interpersonal dynamics first. They tend to prefer persuasion, right, which is convincing with emotion and value, over argumentation, that's based on research and facts and understanding and logic. And they're more vulnerable to logical manipulation because it's their weak spot. So, now that we have done this, I think honestly it aligns. Like if you go just to the root of the definitions, it's very well aligned. I think that maybe Jung and Socionics go a bit deeper, but it still isn't something that's like vastly different from one system to the next. So we'll do a little synthesized definition because that's really what we want, isn't it? So here is a definition that aligns with all systems. So thinking is a cognitive process that organizes, evaluates, and prioritizes reality through the lens of consistency, structure, efficiency, and systemic relationships. It aims to establish what is accurate, effective, and logically valid, whether it be practical, abstract, or subjective. So there are little layers, right? When it comes to Jung, a judging function that classifies reality based on truth, coherence, and logical evaluation. That's what it is. When it comes to MBTI, it's a decision-making preference that favors impersonal criteria, logical analysis, and task-focused reasoning. It prioritizes what makes sense over what feels good or maintains harmony. And then in Socionics, it's a mode of perception and attention that's focused on systemic, structural, measurable, and procedural information. Logical types automatically tracks how things are organized, what works, and whether actions align with systemic consistency. So those are thinkers. That's the definition. And then the synthesized definition for feeling. Feeling is a cognitive process that, again, organizes, evaluates, and prioritizes reality, but this time through the lens of personal, interpersonal, and social values, focusing on harmony, meaning, and relational dynamics. It aims to establish what is important, valuable, appropriate, and emotionally resonant, whether from a social or from a deeply personal perspective. The layers, so with Jung, it's a judging function that evaluates reality based on value, importance, and subjective worth. In MBTI, it's a decision-making preference that favors empathy, harmony, and the personal impact of decisions, and it prioritizes what supports people and relationships over any impersonal efficiency. And then in Socionics, feeling is a mode of perception and attention focused on human, social, emotional, and moral information. Ethical types automatically track relational changes, social dynamics, emotional nuances, and shifts in interpersonal energy. All right, so if you, like, those are the definitions, and it can still be hard. Some people are strong at both for some reason. I think it can be the role function. It can be that you're not a feeler or a thinker first. You may be a sensor or an intuitive. So these are like middle functions, and it can be harder, but it's really looking, where are you really skilled? Where are you confident and natural? Where do you spend most of your time, right? Are you doing all the thinking with confidence and it's even like your role in your family maybe? Or is it the opposite? Are you naturally more oriented and more confident when it comes to relational, emotional aspects, right? Social aspects. That's really where you can see. It's not just, do I do these things, but how often do I do one versus the other? And where am I confident and natural and skilled? So there you go. This wasn't that long, 15 minutes. It's gonna be 16 probably. I hope it was clear. I hope it helps you. And this is the last really like technical, academic little video, because I thought it was just important to truly define like the dichotomies like this. Then we're gonna dive into each of the functions, but I'm gonna go archetypally. So in 2 weeks, I'm gonna start with the extroverted intuition archetype. We're gonna go into more of like thematic expression, I guess, like something that's bigger. What is the role in society of extroverted intuition? Simply because I'm more comfortable with that. I think it's more interesting. And that's going to be in 2 weeks. Next week, I'll continue my series on astrological archetypes. I did the sun, and now I'm going to do the moon, which I'm really excited about, mostly because I'm going to wear lots of silver and stars and talk about the moon and edit it with a lot of silver things. So that's going to be fun. All right, so thank you very much for watching. You can share in the comments if you're a thinker or a feeler, if this helped you, or if you have any like practical examples of those definitions. I think these can always help. And I really appreciate you watching. Have a great day. See you soon.